Who's that coming down the track? Who's that coming down the track? It's a mean machine and riding black. It's a mean machine and riding black. Ain't nothing finer in the land. Ain't nothing finer in the land. And a drunk obnoxious Georgia fan. And a drunk obnoxious Georgia fan. Go down! Go down! Go down!
What's up, y'all? This is John and Mike back for another episode of the Nothing Finer podcast. We are live on Millions tonight, but we also have another announcement to make. We are now a part of the Fans First Sports Network as well as streaming on Millions. Pretty excited about this partnership. You may notice a couple of changes, but nothing to the content, nothing to how we do things really, just you may notice a couple of different things. I know, first off, what we're planning on doing is shorter episodes twice a week, including in the off season, instead of one long one every week. Hopefully break it up a little bit better for you guys, but maybe even be a little bit easier on us. You'll 100% see in this episode how much I cannot control myself when it comes to these sort of things. But yeah, so tonight we are talking. I literally went through and watched every minute of every spring game for every team that Georgia's playing this year.
Doing God's work.
I, a couple of them were tough just because of the commentary, if I'm being 100% honest with you. But I actually still enjoyed it. I think I learned a lot, especially on some of the backups. Is where I think I kind of learned the most, and probably the future of these teams more than the present. But that's kind of what we're getting into today. But before we do that, how you been? What are you drinking?
I've been all right. Last Monday, we recorded, did we? Yeah, we recorded right before our last middle school baseball game. I think Did I tell you about how that ended on here?
I think you told me the score, but honestly, it feels like it's been a year since we've recorded, so I truly have no idea.
Yeah, so we won our final game of the season. We won 12-1. It was impressive. I mean, we kicked the shit out of them for our first win, which honestly we probably would have won a few more games if we weren't rained out for 3 of our 7 games or whatever. But yeah, like I said, we won 12-1. Everybody scored, everybody got a hit. But one thing that I've had to tell everybody, that was like, oh, like super congratulatory and all that, was that we hit into an unassisted triple play.
So I remember you telling me that. How did that happen? I didn't ask because I kind of wanted the explanation on here.
All right, so I had an 8th grader at bat, I had a 6th grader at first, and then I had another 8th grader at second. The kid at bat, pitch was super low. He popped it up to short, but it went like almost in the outfield, but pretty close, but like right to short. 2 boys on base took off right away as soon as contact was hit, which I'm screaming at them, stop, obviously, but neither boy had been on base at all year. It was brand new to them. So short caught it. And I think they had like the kid at second advanced to he was almost home at that point. And then the kid at first was already like past second. But the kid caught it, went to second, tagged the base, and then tagged the runner too. So unassisted triple play.
Kudos to that kid for knowing what to do in that situation.
I don't know. We were all like flabbergasted. I look at the parent that was my bench coach. I'm like, did we just do that? I'm like, I'm impressed. I'm not gonna lie, because that I think I looked it up, and granted, I know we're not anywhere close to Major League Baseball, but an unassisted triple play has only happened 15 times in MLB history.
And once in your middle school's history.
Yeah, I got so much shit from all the other coaches and stuff like that. But you know what? It's fine. We won. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We had
scoreboard.
We have
scoreboard.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. As far as what I'm drinking, I bought this shit from Berwick Beverage, so just right down the street from me. I wanted to try something different, and it's different. It's like a tequila jalapeno mango some shit. I mean, it's bottom shelf because that's all I drink because I'm, a child at heart. But it's not the best thing in the world, of course, but it's different.
Different is never a great compliment.
I, Not something that I would get, but I'm drinking it straight. So
Wait, you're drinking flavored tequila straight.
it's only like 52 proof.
Does Jen know that you may not be working tomorrow or Wednesday or maybe even Thursday?
I'm not doing a ton. Honestly, after the first like couple sips of it, you don't taste it just like regular tequila. It'll sneak up on me.
um,
But how about you?
no, man, been good, been good. Went to Atlanta this past weekend.
I'm sorry.
Um, well, it was my wife's little sister's senior prom, and she wanted us to be in a couple of pictures, and we struggled through family pictures on Sunday mornings. That's always unpleasant. I
Tradition
just,
unlike any other.
yeah, it's nothing against the photographer or, my wife's family. I love them to death. But family pictures brings out the worst in everybody. It really does.
You're telling me.
The most laid back person is a controlling dictator. Everybody's stressed out all the time, even the people that just showed up in clothes that they were told to wear. It's it's quite an experience.
You didn't
Um,
have any like little kids that you had to take pictures of, did you?
uh, Youngest was 17, so acts of a
Okay.
toddler.
At least they kind of know how to smile or like not like try to run away when you're taking their picture. There's that.
Yeah,
It could always be worse. Like anytime we try to take the pictures of the kids.
yeah.
But yeah, that's something just pictures in general.
Oh,
Not a,
and it rained, so we were in like a 12 by 12 greenhouse for these pictures.
yeah, it was hot as hell this weekend, or at least Saturday it was.
Yeah. And I finally got all my damn peppers in the planters, got them all built, got everything set up. Everything's in the dirt, looking good. It was below 40 degrees last night.
Yeah,
Did someone tell Mother Nature it's April? Late April,
I'm
as a
saying.
matter of fact. It's
I'm
stupid.
dying.
Stupid.
Yeah.
Um, but it is going to be a little bit of a long one here, so I think we're going to go ahead and jump into it. Starting off with Clemson. Um, just a non-game related note. They had Dabo mic'd up for the entire spring game.
Oh no.
You say, oh no. It was the most enjoyable spring game I watched.
Really?
A Dabo, first off, he cusses. Never knew that.
Okay. Wait. What's like the worst word that he said?
Well, when he got caught on a hot mic yelling at a kid who accidentally really sacked the quarterback, I heard some things that should not have been on ESPN. Let's say that. Um,
Okay.
yeah, he said, "Damn hell." I think he may have said shit at one point during the broadcast. Like,
Okay.
and he's funny. He cusses. He's very personable. Talk shit about the broadcasters, himself, some of the kids. Like, I understand now why some kids want to go play for Clemson.
That's incredible. Like why didn't he let that out of the bag sooner?
I don't know. But
Because that's
also,
endearing. Yeah.
so because he obviously doesn't have any coordinator experience, he was just a personality on the field. His
Mm,
offensive coordinator had one team, his defensive coordinator had the other team, and he was just hanging out, blowing the whistle for when he said it was a sack.
hell yeah.
Like that was it was actually the most fun I had watching any of these games. But getting into the game itself a little bit, top two quarterbacks played pretty well. I will say it wasn't great, but the backup, Pearman, cannot remember his first name. Don't sue me. There's 50 names at least in this document. So don't sue me. I don't remember the kid's name. Pearman looked significantly better than Klubnik.
Okay.
He was, when he took off to run, he was faster. He had better field vision. He had a stronger arm. He was more accurate. I would be significantly more concerned about this game if Pearman was the starting quarterback going into week 1.
So do you think Klubnik has a long leash just because he's, the 5-star kid that's been, this is his third year in the program?
I think the third year in the program is part of it. Second year under Garrett Riley. But, I mean, honestly, if Clemson wants to go where they have been, they're starting Pearman. Like, I don't understand why they would stick with Klubnik.
Yeah, we need to talk to somebody from Clemson this offseason. I think we had talked about it before, like them in Ohio State. Like, that would be good.
Running backs struggled to get through the gap whatsoever and get consistent yards. A lot. They were better pass catchers than they were runners, but the offensive line, I'd say, is at least half of that problem. The offensive line is bad. I mean, if you counted what Dabo counted as sacks, you're probably talking between all 4 quarterbacks, they probably each had 6 or 7 on them.
Oh wow.
Yeah, not. It was tough.
And that's not a Georgia front they're going against either. So okay.
Yeah. The wide receiver room is good to great. They got a lot of different types of receivers. They got the tall guys, the big body guys, the short shifty guys. All of their wide receivers are good. They've got a couple guys, including one of the freshmen, great, could be better than great. Like, their wide receiver room is not slacking whatsoever. I will say the tight ends struggled. Just in the first half alone, tight ends by themselves had 3 drops. Like, hit them in both hands and hit the ground. So, kind of is what it is there. Going to the defensive side of the ball, the front 7 is elite. I mean, it's Clemson. It's kind of their bread and butter. That's how they've won championships in the past. I'd say their front 7's probably top 3 in the country, top 5 at worst.
Okay.
Only possible weak point is their size, and that's not saying they are small, but a lot of guys are real big and not necessarily athletically big. So there was one guy that was probably bigger around than he was tall that they had in about a third of the snaps for the first team guys. Not great. Like Jordan Davis, giant.
Yeah.
Athlete. This guy, giant. Maybe, possibly athletic, but athlete would be a stretch.
And you said Sammy Brown was a problem in this game too, right?
Sammy Brown was first play of the game. He came from an inside linebacker spot around the edge, got a sack.
God. If y'all recall, like way back when we were talking about it before, like he was, I think we were both really big on him, like hoping that he would come to Georgia, and that was a loss. But we filled it in pretty hard.
He started with the first team defense as a true freshman, been in the program for 3 months, and this is Clemson. Like, their defense is always good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think ACC Freshman of the Year, not out of the question. Freshman All-American, not even a question.
Yeah.
Like, Sammy Brown, one of the best true freshman linebackers we'll probably see out of the next 5 years. Phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
The secondary is talented, but very young. They're planning on starting true freshmen. Planning on starting 2 true freshmen. They were almost always in the right place at the right time, but didn't know what to do when they got there. I didn't count, but there were probably close to 10 pass interference calls throughout the entire game.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was tough. Their special teams struggle a little bit. They missed some inside of 40-yard kicks, but they also made some close to 50. So I'd say it's more inconsistent than not good. But they do have scholarship kickers this year. So.
Oh, good for them.
Yeah, improvement from last season. One thing I noticed putting a graphic together for this, Georgia's playing like half the teams they're playing this season have orange as a primary color.
Hmm.
Or
Okay.
one of their primary colors. Clemson, Texas, Tennessee, Florida's got orange, Auburn's got orange, and there was another one I looked up.
Texas.
I think I said Texas.
Oh, okay.
Um, but Texas, this was the last spring game I watched. So this is probably going to be pretty quick because I ended up watching the abridged version on YouTube, and those guys are heroes. The
Yeah.
guys that record an entire spring game and cut out all the BS, and you just have a 15-minute YouTube video that's every play, all of the action, and none of the talking, none of the huddles, none of the timeouts. Makes you realize that we watched 3 hours of football for about 15 minutes worth of plays. Kind of sad.
Yeah.
But those guys are heroes. Um, Offensive line is definitely weaker than last year. First drive of the game was a defensive lineman breaking through and getting an interception off of a pass that he tipped himself, and then ran it in for a thick six.
Hell yeah.
So love to see that. They probably did not because that was their starting offensive line and quarterback.
Hmm.
Not a ton of use of running backs in this game. CJ Baxter is the one guy that I really zeroed in on. He wears number 4 for them. Caught passes out of the backfield and looked like a tight end. He was tall. He was strong. He ran hard as hell. He ran good routes. That dude's a monster.
Okay.
Arch Manning, I think, looked better than Quinn Ewers. I'm
He
not
he was
not
like
trying to
19 of like 24, right? Like he
It
had a good
took
like
it took until late in the third quarter for him to have an incomplete pass.
oh wow. Yeah, he had like what was that? Like 300 yards passing or something like that.
Yeah, and at least 2 of the incompletions were drops.
Hmm.
There were times where he threaded the needle so like what was that Michigan versus Ohio State play where the needle was threaded ridiculous? It
That
was
JJ
two.
pass. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, to go
yeah.
like down the middle, yeah. Or seam, yeah.
Arch Manning made a throw where it was 2 windows like that for a touchdown.
Oh wow.
Yeah. For all of the lack of film he put up in high school, he did enough to prove that he's good in this one spring game.
Okay, noted. All right.
Wide receiver room looks absolutely stacked. Better than last year. Isaiah Bond's
Oh
probably the
wow.
4th or 5th best guy in their team.
He caught a long touchdown from March too.
He did. That was against the second team defense, which struggled quite a
Oh,
bit.
yeah.
But I'd say top 3: DeAndre Moore, Jonte Cook, and Ryan Wingo. Ryan Wingo is a true freshman that owned the second team defense and did extremely well against the first team defense.
Okay.
Been in the program since January, and he was destroying the second team. It looked like an NFL player going against high school kids
Hmm.
against that second team defense. The name Ryan Wingo does not ring a bell as far as recruiting goes. Maybe Georgia wasn't in on him whatsoever, but the kid's an animal. He is
Yeah.
going to be a problem for the next 3 years.
And Georgia's got to
Uh,
pick in the next but at least 2 out of 3 years, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. That yeah. Biggest concern for me about that game right now is Ryan Wingo.
Wow. It's high praise, man. Or
Yeah.
big praise.
Defensive backfield needs help pretty bad. All of the quarterbacks and wide receivers just really did whatever they wanted. If a running back caught a pass out of the backfield, made it to the second level, you were calling all of your boys to get him down. They couldn't tackle, they couldn't cover. The defensive backfield could do nothing right. A wide receiver could have fell down, like just fell down mid route, and the defensive back would have tipped the ball to him. That's how they could not do anything right. It was so prayer at Jordan Hare all day. That's kind of how it like even when they were in the right spot doing the right thing at the right time, the wide receiver just still caught the pass and had plenty of room to run. It was
Yeah.
Yeah, it was tough. Linebackers were flat-footed far too often and weren't attacking plays. The only time they really got downfield on anything was when it was a design blitz. The only times the running backs actually were used in the run game, the linebackers were standing in the same spot as they were at the snap as a running back just drove right past them. So they're outside of their defensive line, their entire defense needs significant help.
I mean, Sark's there to just coach offense, not defense.
Yeah. They're not playing school, they're not playing defense.
Right.
Kentucky game wasn't broadcasted. I don't know what else to say about it. They had a deal with the SEC and ESPN to just not show the game.
UNC did the same thing because they have a quarterback competition. I wonder if that's going to be a thing going forward.
It sucks. I hope not.
Yeah. I wanted to see Brock very badly. That was the one spring game besides Georgia that I really wanted to kind of key in on, and I was kind of disappointed that they weren't televised. But there was a picture of Brock Vandagriff in like hunting camo, and he had a phone clip on his belt. And I right away, top 3 for Heisman. Like that version of Brock.
Gotta be.
Good God.
Yeah, gotta be. When you got dad energy as a 20-year-old, you're doing something. You're doing something.
Mm-hmm. I want to be Brock Vandagriff when I grow up.
Don't we all? I mean, I'm going for the mullet right now, so I'm trying to be.
I can't do that. I'll look like Hulk Hogan without the muscles.
Can you at least rip a t-shirt off?
If I cut it a little bit first,
okay.
yeah.
Okay. But yeah, so with Kentucky's game not being broadcasted, I'm not going to read 30 articles by Kentucky sites to try and differentiate between them hyping themselves up and what actually happened. So we're just not talking about Kentucky.
We're just we'll just say Brock played really, really well.
Yeah, Brock Vandagriff threw for 1,000 yards in one game, but it wasn't the defense's fault. It's just he's that good.
Yeah.
Just a heads up. I also skipped Mississippi State, mainly because they've already had 10 guys enter the portal after the spring game. We all assumed it would happen, so nothing that I could have learned during the spring game even matters anymore because they're rebuilding the team again. So Mississippi State didn't get talked about.
Oh well.
It's not meant to be negative towards them, but at the same time, it is.
Yeah.
Alabama. Quarterbacks all looked pretty good. Milroe actually looks better than he did last year. Ty Simpson's taken a massive step forward. I'm sure we all expected that with Kalen DeBoer coming in the program, but it still needed to be said because Milroe actually looked like a quarterback in this game.
Yeah, from what I saw, yeah, absolutely.
Offensive line is better. Still don't know how good they are. They're running a 4-2-5 defense. If a single extra person got added to rushing the quarterback, it was game over. Offensive line was a wet paper bag. So how much of it was the defensive line not actually trying to get to the quarterback versus the offensive line improving? Don't know. We don't know.
Yeah.
Running backs all look phenomenal. A room full of powerful guys. Same guys that are powerful, have speed. Every single guy in their running back room can run through you and probably hit 20 miles an hour on the way to the end zone. Running backs are dangerous.
Okay.
Wide receiver room looks like Jeremy Bernard and everyone else. It's kind of like, okay, this guy's definitely an NFL wide receiver, and is this the best of what Alabama has? Like a significant teardrop there. Probably teardrops in the crowd as well. Offense overall looks a little clunky, probably because they've only had a few months to get the offense in, and then, Kalen DeBoer comes in. A month later, they get a new offensive coordinator and have to deal with it from there. A lot of it was communication stuff. A lot of the incompleted passes were communication errors, some missed protections. They had to take quite a few timeouts just to get the play in because the communication was poor. But like I said, they've had this offense for, 3 weeks longer than they've been in spring practice. So
Yeah. And do they have the headset thing in the quarterback's helmets yet?
So some of the spring games that I watched, they were using that and some were not.
Okay.
So I'm not entirely sure. I know Georgia used it. I know Texas used it.
Yeah.
I think Tennessee did as well, but I'm not sure about the others.
Okay.
Um, Defense on this Alabama team looks entirely different than what we've seen from Alabama in a very long time. Defensive line gets no push, only got push when they added pressure. Linebackers look like they thought this was a damn lacrosse game and they're trying to figure out what football is. Secondary, not really covering anyone, period. Like it was not good. And last note I have here is with how many rushing yards the entire team had in this game, running backs, quarterbacks, wide receivers after the catch, Georgia may just have 500 yards rushing in this game. Like
I'm here for
Carson could have 10 attempts in this game unless they drastically improve.
Yeah, I'm here for it.
I wouldn't be upset, but that's not something you normally see at Alabama. And that was
No.
surprising.
Mm.
Auburn. Quarterback is still a huge question. They've got two guys that are the definition of mid competing against one guy that's a half step above mid to like he's so if mid is like a C, his grade would be like a 76.7.
Mm.
So like not mid plus, not mid, just kind of somewhere in between there, and that's Hank Brown.
Yeah.
This is the first year that I would say Auburn actually has decent enough wide receivers and tight ends in a while, and probably doesn't have anybody to get him the ball.
Yeah.
Offensive line is another massive question, and they'll probably struggle against damn near everybody they play. I mean, we're talking about the same team that lost to New Mexico State last year.
Yeah.
Running back room still has Jarquez Hunter, which is always a plus, but behind him, it's just a bunch of new guys trying to figure out the game.
Mm.
Wide receiver room, Cam Coleman and everybody else. It's not as big of a drop off between Jeremy Bernard and all the other guys at Bama, but Cam Coleman is still a step or two ahead of the rest of their guys. He would probably start this year for almost every team in the SEC.
Yeah, it was a big get for them for sure.
Yeah. If he can get accurate targets between the play of the offensive line and the quarterback, easily over 1,000 yards this season. The likelihood of that happening, not very much. Hate it for him because, he went to Auburn to try to help them build something, and if that'll happen is a huge question. The first team's front seven is very good. The depth behind them is lacking, which is probably going to lead to them struggling late into some games when all their guys are tired. Linebackers, great at run stopping and getting pressure, not as great in coverage. How much of that are they going to ask their guys to do? I'm not entirely sure, but when they tried to do it in the spring game, not good. Just not good. Defensive backs are a huge question. Because to me, a lot of that is the offense they were playing against. When the offense put the ball in position for them to need to play defense, they played it well. There were a lot of PI, but when you're in the right place at the right time doing the right thing and just kind of freak out at the end, that's something that can pretty easily get coached out of you. I mean, it's the same thing we were talking about with Keely Ringo when he was a true freshman. Right place, right time, doing the right thing, and then just end up pushing the guy because you used your hands in the wrong way. I will say there was only one touchdown scored all day.
Ew.
So the way they did their spring game, and Alabama had a weird scoring system. A lot of teams had weird scoring systems, but I actually liked Auburn's weird scoring system. They spotted the defense 27 points and told the offense to make up for it. So they had 4 quarters to get 28 points.
Mhm.
They had 7 field goals and 1 touchdown. $28 points.
There you go. I was gonna say it. It took me a minute. Yeah.
Yep, that's Auburn's offense this year. Just kind of, they were hoping that they would get a big name out of the portal for a quarterback in the spring window. No quarterbacks have really hit the spring window, so it'll be very interesting.
Well, the only one that has is Jalen Rashada. So, like, I know Georgia was mentioned as a possible destination for him, but if I were him, wouldn't you rather go to Auburn and play right away?
I would.
Yeah. I mean, Auburn sucks, as you know, the song goes. But yeah, just for him, yeah, it makes more sense for him to go to Auburn than anywhere else. But we'll see.
Go
I
to
would
Auburn.
gladly take him at Georgia, sure.
Yes.
But
Do the funniest thing possible and get 2 former Florida 5-star players in the same offseason.
Yeah.
But
yeah, be dope.
no, Jaden Rashada 100% needs to go to Auburn, get immediate playing time. We know Mr. Yellowwood's got a whole bag and a half for you. I don't want to see it because I think he's a good player, but
Yeah.
advice for your future: don't come sit at Georgia for 3 years. Go to Auburn.
Yeah.
Ole Miss. They didn't have a real spring game. They played.
Wait, well, you got Florida.
Do what? Oh,
To,
yep. Nope. Completely skipped Florida.
yeah, you know what? They're easy to forget.
You know what? Let's just go ahead and get into it. Florida's quarterback two deep is probably almost as good as Alabama's. I just talked about how good Alabama's quarterbacks look, but it's an opposite of the skill sets because Florida's starter is a pocket passer who's mobile when he needs to be, and DJ Lagway is a true dual threat. Huge guy to be a true freshman.
Yeah.
Can run fast, can zip a ball in, but he also knows how to put a touch on the pass. He is 100% the more talented guy.
Yeah.
And that's, we've talked pretty high about Graham Mertz for a Georgia podcast. We joked on him all last offseason. And he was not the reason that Florida didn't make a bowl game last year. He's the only reason they probably won 5 games last year. But
Yep.
DJ Lagway, the ceiling on DJ Lagway, 2 times what Graham Mertz is. The issue here, Graham Mertz has done nothing to lose his job. If DJ Lagway wasn't around, there would be 0 questions about Florida's quarterback room right now.
Yeah.
And, man, that's going to be one of the more interesting developments of early in the season is how does it go? Because with what you saw out of DJ Lagway, you can't keep him off the field.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
You can't do it, and you can't just design quarterback runs for him because he does have a stronger arm than Graham Mertz. Like, you can't just say, Graham's going to pass, you're going to run. What do you do?
Mm-hmm.
2 quarterback systems don't work. They don't. At least not since Tim Tebow did it with, forgetting the name.
Chris Leak.
Chris Leak. I wanted to say Leaf so bad.
Ryan Leaf.
Yeah, that's where my head was going.
Yeah.
But no, their quarterback system is one of the more interesting things that I think is going to happen this offseason, early in the season. As terrible as this is, and I'm a knock on wood, I hope y'all can hear it because I'm not wishing this on either guy. The only way it's solved without an issue between players is an injury.
Mm-hmm. Like this is actually one of the few spring games that I kind of watch intently, at least the highlights, highlight wise. And Lagway kind of seemed like a more raw freshman Jalen Hurts to me. I could be way off. They're built the same. At least
they're built. Yeah. DJ Lagway is huge. I think he's 6'4", 240 as a true freshman.
Yeah.
Massive. He can bulldoze people. At the same time, he can rip a 70-yard dart. Like it's kind of wild that Sunbelt Billy was able to pull him when he probably does not have a job next year.
Yeah. Yeah.
But man, I'm real interested in this. I hope neither guy gets hurt. I would much rather one of these guys just quit on the team midseason and go to the transfer portal than either of them get hurt, because I appreciate them both as players, even though they do play for Florida.
Mhm.
But it's got to be a very tough situation for Billy going into this year to essentially have the Anthony Richardson, Emory Jones situation that was in Dan Mullins last year.
Yeah.
I think the offensive line for this team is better than last year. I'm not sure how much of a significant better it is, but they are better. Running back room is significantly less of a threat with ETN gone, being in Athens. Montreal Johnson is not bad. He's not near as explosive.
Yeah.
Like he is trying to think of a guy that had a lot of hype and never did a whole lot. Mm. Montreal Johnson is Florida's Marshawn Lloyd.
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah.
And not saying anything bad about it. Marshawn Lloyd is a good player. So is Montreal Johnson. He's
Mhm.
just he's not the guy. He's not a game changer. You know.
Yeah.
Trey Wilson is by far their biggest threat at wide receiver, with Ricky Pearsall off to the NFL. The rest of their wide receivers, giant question mark. It's the Riddler going on down there. Kind of a caveat off of the offensive line. It's either the offensive line is really good or the defensive front is really bad. Because a lot of teams were able to get pressure on Florida last season, and their defense wasn't able to do much of anything. Is that true this year? Maybe. But the offense was able to run all over the defense, both first and second team. Defensive backs were allowing an insane amount of separation with the wide receivers and tight ends. And when they did close that separation, it was pretty much every time pass interference. Probably the most flags I saw in a spring game. Neither safeties or linebackers were able to lock down the middle of the field. It was just a wide open lane for passing pretty much all day. And then both of their field goal kickers struggled from outside of 30 yards and barely snuck it in the uprights on like a 20-yard kick. So that'll be real interesting. Ole Miss, like I said a minute ago, got ahead of myself there. Didn't have a real spring game. They had flag football and a dunk contest and probably a Joey Freshwater, give us your best pickup line. I don't know. But can't talk about them because they didn't have a real game.
I mean, they didn't even have pads on, which is wild.
Yeah. It's Lane being Lane.
Yeah.
I like Lane. I appreciate that he's a coach in the SEC. I'm not going to say anything bad about it, but they didn't have a real game for us to really figure anything out about. Tennessee. I will say it was probably the most difficult spring game for me to get anything of worth out of. With how improved the defense was last year, it was really difficult to determine if Nico struggled, if the offensive line is worse, or if the defense is still good. There are too many questions going into the game to actually get answers.
Yeah.
Because if you're questioning the both sides of the same coin, you don't know which one to trust in. Nico looked good during the plays he made. I will say those weren't all that frequent. He did throw a lot of passes off the mark, left and right. That's going to lead to interceptions in the SEC.
Yeah.
Offensive line allowed a lot of pressure. Most of the wide receivers didn't look good. And I tried to be as impartial as I could and see what I really thought about these teams. I still do not understand the Squirrel White hype. I don't.
It feels like Squirrel White's been there for like 6 years.
It's always like, oh, this guy's going to do it. This guy's going to do it.
Yeah.
And he still hasn't. I'm not saying he can't. But, I mean, it's the same thing as Kentucky's situation last year. Like, all we heard is about how good these guys are on the practice field, and then when it came into the game, they didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still don't get that. I will say the second team performed better than the first team. To me, that's just a sign of lack of depth, and not that the first team isn't good. I think their defense just doesn't have a lot of depth. But the second team and third team defense struggled a lot. A lot. And I couldn't find the entire game on YouTube because they had some stream issues going into the fourth quarter. So if something crazy happened in the fourth quarter, I just couldn't see it. Like, nobody got the stream of the fourth quarter of the game. It was an ESPN problem. So I don't know.
Tennessee fans will tell you Nico just let it up.
Yeah, he had 400 yards in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
It's because he played for both teams.
There you go.
This
Darno just hit another home run.
You're significantly ahead of me.
I mean, I'm just on the ESPN app.
Oh, yeah, I'm still on Ozuna's at bat.
Sorry.
Well, they just walked Ozuna, so I'm assuming it's about to happen. So I will talk about this while looking over to the side. So if you're on YouTube, I'm watching the Braves game. Love me or hate me, don't really care. This is probably going to surprise a lot of people. I got the most out of the Georgia Tech game out of any game.
Okay.
And hold on. There it is. Yeah. So Haynes King kind of is what he is at this point. He's working with another entirely new room of wide receivers again. And yes, I said another and again just to emphasize that this is his fourth year in college football and his fourth set of wide receivers to throw to in his third offense in 4 years. He didn't miss many throws. They just weren't always caught. A lot of drop passes, a lot of, he threw it just far enough where the guy could only get one hand on it and couldn't bring it in. He did throw an interception in the first quarter, but if we are leading the tipped passes don't count as interceptions on quarterback train, Haynes King didn't throw an interception. It was a tip pass. Is what it is. That's just kind of how we are about this at this point, because you can't control what happens to the ball after somebody else tips it because your offensive line isn't good.
Yeah.
Lost where I was. Backup Zach Pyron. He played a good bit in the Georgia game last year. He's a little bit less mobile. Still a pretty good passer, and he's actually better at passing on the run than Haynes King. So it'll be interesting to see if they still do a little bit of two-quarterback system with that one. It wasn't frequent that they did it last year, but when they did use it, it worked pretty well. I mean, the Georgia game was close for them, so that was kind of their biggest game of the year. Jamal Haynes at running back. Probably the best running back of any single player I watched in any of these spring games. How he's at Georgia Tech instead of an SEC school, don't understand it. He could catch passes, inside runs, outside runs. And inside runs were a little bit more of a struggle, but that was because the offensive line isn't good. But when he had a gap, he made the defense pay. He's real good in pass protection, too. I mean, Jamal Haynes, I don't know what his plan is for his future, but if he decides to enter the portal at some point, there will be a number of SEC schools throwing multiple commas at him.
Maybe it's going to be like a Jahmyr Gibbs situation for him.
Yeah. And, I've said for years now I want Georgia Tech to be better so the game at the end of the season doesn't hurt Georgia. It helps them in their argument for whatever is to come. But, man, Jamal Haynes is so good. So good. The offensive line struggled quite a bit on pass protection, inside runs. But kind of flip side of the same coin, the defensive line took a ton of transfers. I think they said they got 7 transfers just on the defensive line. Multiple guys from Power 5 programs. They got guys from Florida State. They got guys from the SEC in multiple places. So their defensive line is going to be good. They are still planning on starting a couple of true freshmen on the defensive line this year out towards the edge. So that'll be interesting to see how it works out. The wide receiver room does have some really good pieces. A lot of guys that would normally fit the slot receiver role, shorter, skinnier, shiftier guys. Um, but both Singleton and Rutherford are both quality guys that would start on a lot of teams. Christian Leary, second-year player out of Bama. He's still on the team. Didn't see a lot of him during this game. Rylan Gode. A lot of people remember that name. He was a tight end for Georgia. Came in the year before Brock Bowers. Transferred to Mississippi State and then transferred to Georgia Tech. He seems to be a decent part of the offense. So good for him. Happy for that.
Yeah.
The offense as a whole seems to use a lot of misdirection to compensate for their offensive line. So, just something to think about when you're watching these Georgia Tech games. Defensive line looked really good with the transfers. A little difficult to tell just how good they are or if the offensive line is that bad, but I'm probably leaning towards them being good just due to a lot of these guys got significant playing time on their former teams and left due to coaching situations or, wanting a different place to go play. They do have a linebacker that wears neck roll, so
Yep.
always love to
Hell
see
yeah.
that. Always love that.
Mm-hmm.
Their linebackers are asked to cover in space quite a bit, and they do have both of their presumed starters are former SEC linebackers, so they are good enough to do that. EJ Lightsey from Georgia, and then they got a guy from Tennessee, so they definitely have talent at that linebacker spot. They did pretty well in coverage, except for Jamal Haynes is probably going to give most defenses they play trouble, so I'm not going to hold that against them. I will say the secondary didn't get tested a whole lot. They were mostly short, intermediate passes. Probably mostly everything was inside of 20, 25 yards. But on the few deep throws they did face, not great. Just, is what it is there. Most important thing out of this game. Their guy hit a 61-yard field goal.
Sheesh.
And I understand it's a spring game, but their field goal coverage group was actually trying to stop it. It's not like they were just standing there. Like they had their hands up, nobody jumped. But to hit a 61-yard field goal and you probably had 5 more yards behind it, it's dangerous.
Yeah, that's impressive. That's a weapon.
Yeah. But that's kind of all I got for the spring games. I hope you guys got something out of it because I did enjoy watching all of them but the Bama game. Greg McElroy just had a giant crimson something down his throat the entire game. It was difficult to listen to.
Well, he lives in Birmingham, doesn't he? I mean, he has to be that way.
They spent a legitimate 5 minutes showing pictures of him around Tuscaloosa, like holding babies. And acting like he was the coolest guy in the world on the sideline. Like he was sitting on the back of the bench talking to coaches with aviators on. It's like, dude, you were a mid quarterback 12 years ago. It's like, let's cool it a little bit.
He's probably my age at this point. Hello, fellow youth.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to just constantly be the worst person to listen to commentate a game. You don't have to. I promise. But that's going to do it for us tonight, today, this morning, whenever you're listening to us. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys got something out of it. But follow us on social media. Instagram's at nothing.finer.pod. Twitter is at finerpod. Just search us on Facebook and YouTube. Mike, what's the TikTok?
At Nothing Fighter Podcast? Yeah, I think that's what it is.
You put something like that in there. I'm sure you'll find us.
Yeah.
Check us out on Millions. Obviously, all of our videos go up on there as well as YouTube. And Fans First Sports Network, they're going to have a page for us soon, so all of our stuff will be put in there. But yeah, we appreciate you guys, and always remember there is nothing finer in the land.
And a Drunken Max's Georgia fan.